Where the hell am I?
Resident Evil Village is almost upon us, and following the most recent Resident Evil Village showcase, we were able to watch over an hour's worth of preview footage from the game. We met some new friends, saw some new locations, but mostly, we saw protagonist Ethan Winters get sliced, diced, chased, and chopped by enemies, both familiar and brand new. So we thought we'd put together a little primer of all the things lurking in the village and beyond that sooner or later you'll be fighting your way through. And yes, that includes new footage of all 4 heads of the village houses, especially one tall vampire lady in particular, who we were lucky enough to be chased by through the castle. Don't be jealous. But first, a warning. This video does contain brand new footage from Resident Evil Village that some may consider spoilers. So be warned if you choose to continue watching. Alright, let's get stuck in.
Man blood.
So the preview begins with Ethan coming to at a crash site in Eastern Europe looking for Chris Redfield and Ethan's daughter, Rose, who has been kidnapped. Ethan inevitably stumbles on the village, where apparently the residents had been living in safety up until a few days before, when the monsters started attacking from all sides. The Lycans are the first enemy we met. They are super fast, can deal a sizable amount of damage, and, unsurprisingly, prefer to attack as a pack. This really works to make them seem more of a threat than they actually are, so long as you keep your cool and focus on dealing damage to them one at a time. It shouldn't take too many bullets to whittle down their numbers, so long as your aim is decent. The village is in a bit of a state when you arrive, and supplies are in short, supply. So Ethan will have to cobble together resources and craft bullets as well as healing items from whatever he finds lying around. And you'll unlock more crafting recipes as you play through the game. There's a point during the demo where you enter a sort of 2-story barn or storage shed, and all of a sudden you're attacked on all sides by Lycans. You have the option of barricading the door with a heavy shelving unit. This is seemingly something you'll see a fair bit of in Village, as more enemies will attack in groups and a little bit of crowd control could mean the difference between getting out alive or getting chomped on. It's also just another way in which Village is extremely reminiscent of Resident Evil 4, which had plenty of moments where Leon Kennedy had to hole up in a crumbling shack, blocking as many entry points as he could as monsters poured in from every angle. In another part of the preview, Ethan took on a pack of Lycans out in the open, which had its own pros and cons. There are plenty of buildings to weave in and out of, and you can create bottlenecks to destroy multiple enemies with some handily placed big red barrels. But Lycans can also attack from the rooftops, and they seem to be relatively intelligent in that they can use bows and arrows, heavy melee weaponry, and they can ride horses, which, seems a bit unorthodox, but it might go some way to explaining why the Heisenberg house sigil is a horse and horseshoe. And if we move with that theme, the Lycans seem to be the workhorses of the 4 houses, seeing as House Heisenberg appears to run the factory we've glimpsed in a new image of the village map detailing some individual locations. In some trailer footage, we've likely seen the interior of this factory, where what appear to be bodies are strung up on a production line. What exactly the factory is producing, we don't know. More Lycans, bottled blood, thralls to serve the other houses? But if we look at the map again, we can see what appears to be a giant horse on the grounds of the factory too. This could just be a stylistic choice of the map maker, of course, or maybe not. Giant mutated animals aren't exactly strangers to the Resident Evil series after all.
No way!
Now, this man, Heisenberg, does indeed seem to be the leader of the Lycans. Though we don't see him change from his human form to this furrier alter ego and vice versa, these two figures wield the same huge weapon. and even in human form, he commands the other Lycans pretty comfortably. At one point, he manages to capture Ethan and then gives him a sporting chance to escape. Clearly, that works out well for Ethan. But Heisenberg does also seem to have some sort of telekinetic mastery over metal, as we've seen in previous trailer footage. Maybe another reason his house runs an industrial factory. And maybe the giant horse is a metallic construct that Ethan will have to somehow take down. What do you think? Is that a yay or a nay to that theory? Sorry, couldn't help myself. Onwards, and Castle Dimitrescu is separated from the village by huge stone gates. And it'll take Ethan a little while to get to Lady D's domain, even after he's warned that there's nothing up there but blood and death. But in the castle, there are several things waiting to kill you in increasingly elaborate and painful ways. First off, of course, there are Lady D's daughters.
Mother, I bring you fresh prey.
Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela. While the three seem to take great delight in torturing anyone they come across, men in particular, they are obedient to a fault to their mother.
Enough games! I want that man's head! Now go! Of course, Mother.
We got to see a little bit more of how they move and attack in the preview. Now, they're quite difficult to hurt because of their ability to dissipate into a cloud of insects at will. And when one is on your tail, those insects will continually swarm you and deal gradual damage. Basically, it's going to take more than a handful of handgun bullets to take them down. Luckily, the castle has plenty of places to hide while you figure things out, including areas we've explored before in the maiden demo. The castle also hides plenty of classic Resident Evil style puzzles, which we can't wait to pick apart while simultaneously running for our lives. There are other dangerous creatures lurking within the castle walls, though. These hooded, thrall-like enemies have been seen before, lurking in the lower depths of the castle. Judging by their ragged appearance and the chains on their ankles, it's possible these unfortunate souls were former victims of the daughters, who maybe succumbed to a different sort of torture, becoming eternal slaves instead of supper. They'll hunt Ethan wherever the daughters can't reach him, and seem to especially enjoy hiding out underwater to jump out and surprise you as you pass by. Interestingly though, in this preview we saw Ethan reach a higher point in the castle, and he again runs into these figures. But there's a twist. These thralls have grown wings and resemble some sort of twisted human/bat/dragon hybrid. And this checks out because if we go back to the map of the village, there's an enormous bat/dragon creature looming over the castle. Now, who do you suppose this could be? Given that we know Heisenberg can transform at will, I don't think it's out of the question that other heads of houses can too, right?
Stupid man thing! You won't live long, even if you run!
So what about the woman of the hour, Lady Alcina Dimitrescu herself? Well, we've finally seen her outside of cutscenes, and past comparisons between Lady D, Mr. X, and Nemesis are apt. She's an unstoppable force that will hunt you from room to room, stopping only to stoop as she moves through doorways that are way too small for her. She can follow Ethan quite quickly and attacks hard with her terrifying claw hands. So it's probably wise to conserve your ammo and take advantage of Ethan's ability to guard against taking a full hit. He's also able to push away and counterpunch certain enemies, but something tells us Lady Dimitrescu might be a little too powerful for that. In most cases, it's probably best to stay as far away from her as you can. Unless, of course, you want her to rough you up a little, in which case, no judgment here.
Starting to go a little stale.
Then let's devour his man-flesh quickly, Mother.
I am the one who captured him.
Now, daughters. First, I must inform Mother Miranda.
So it seems like we have a good grasp on what Houses Heisenberg and Dimitrescu are all about. But there are two more houses lording it over the village that you will come up against: Moreau and Beneviento. In this abandoned church, we see a portrait of Mother Miranda flanked by 4 others. 2 are Heisenberg and Lady D, the other 2 are a little more mysterious. There's a sort of bubbled, almost fish-like figure hiding under a crown of bones tied together with ship rope. And there's a bridal, doll-like puppet being manipulated by a figure fully veiled in what looks like garb made for mourning. Now, we actually get a better look at these figures later on in the preview, when Ethan is captured.
My daughters and I shall deliver this.
Way ugly! I want to see! He's away!
Shut the fuck up!
Reading between the lines, it seems pretty certain that these are the representatives of House Moreau and House Beneviento, respectively. House Moreau, as we know, is symbolised by a mermaid. And in the map, we see that House Moreau runs the reservoir where a large, water-dwelling creature lurks. I reckon that large creature and this fishy, bloated corpse-looking person are one and the same, if we're to assume that all the heads of houses are capable of changing their form at will. House Beneviento is a bit less clear-cut, but their symbol is actually 2 complementary yet opposing faces combined, the sun and the moon, or perhaps the bride puppet and the widow puppeteer. And speaking of puppets, it looks like a rather large one roams the area around House Beneviento. You know, I'm seeing a theme develop here. Now, that's all we really know about the 2 other houses for now, but there are some more bits of interesting information we can glean from the evidence we have to hand. In the most recent trailer, we saw a secluded outdoor site housing 4 huge statues surrounding a central plinth with the 4 house sigils and the umbrella logo in the middle. It's maybe a less important detail, but those 4 huge statues and their pointy crowns match up to this engraving of the sigils next to 4 figures, likely the founders of the houses. This engraving also features what looks like the 4 elements of fire, earth, water and wind for each house, and that central plinth again linking to the umbrella symbol. What part does umbrella play in all of this? Well, I'm willing to bet that all comes back to Mother Miranda. Mother Miranda is a figure mentioned throughout the preview demo we saw, and it's clear from the start that she's extremely important to the story of RE Village. The villagers all worship her, believing she protects them from the other monsters that roam the land. And while that might technically be true, it's because the monsters like Lady D and Heisenberg all answer to Mother Miranda, fighting for her favour. So it's likely under her command that they're now on the offensive. The real question is, why attack now? And could it have something to do with Ethan and Rose Winters? Or indeed, the ceremony we keep hearing so much about? We actually saw Mother Miranda several times throughout the demo, in pictures and in person. There's a church dedicated to her worship in the village where we see several portraits of her masked face. We see her portrait in the houses of the villagers, and we once caught a glimpse of her casually murdering a villager in a field, then laughing quietly and walking away. But we get a better look at her when all of the heads of houses are gathered together to decide what to do with the captured Ethan. She has a mask on, has a pretty ornate golden halo headdress hanging behind her, and wears what looks like a robe made out of black feathers. But then, things get heated, and in order to silence her children, Miranda unfolds her wings. All multiple sets of them, which you can just about make out here. Now, the connection to religious iconography is pretty clear even before you know the villagers worship her. There's the halo and the robe she wears underneath the wings for one, but the wings themselves are also reminiscent of a seraphim, one of the highest classes of angels in the Bible, said to possess 6 wings. And it's no accident that the symbol we've seen repeated over and over ever since Resident Evil Village was announced is a fetus surrounded by, you guessed it, black wings. This symbol was said to be so important to Resident Evil Village's story that the developers themselves thought twice about even showing it. Is this ceremony going to be a way for Mother Miranda to be reborn into a new body of a baby possessing some sort of power? A baby, like Rose perhaps, born to parents infected with a later strain of virus used to produce bioweapons? Is Mother Miranda the true origin of Umbrella, a figure who has been pulling the strings and evolving with the many virus mutations over the centuries? Well, it's not long until we find out officially, but hopefully this has given you something to think about and time to prepare against all these creatures looking to kill Ethan in an imaginative variety of ways. Of course, Ethan isn't without help too. Chris Redfield, who may or may not be infected with the werewolf curse, seems to be encouraging Ethan along in his own apparently sadistic way. But that's another mystery for another video. Make sure and subscribe if you haven't, because we have lots of new videos on Resident Evil Village coming very soon. Until then, check out these other ones, including recent demo playthroughs and another big old lore breakdown. Enjoy, and stay safe out there. Bye!